and other financial statements, and whether policy is carried out efficiently, effectively, and economically, and whether expenditure conforms to the authority which governs it. So, members, I would like at this point to invite other members of the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee to introduce themselves, followed by officials of MTS, Ministry of Finance, Investments Division, and of course, officials, public officials from the Ministry of Public Utilities. So members of our committee, can you introduce yourselves at this time?
Hi, good morning, Rashtan Pare, Vice Chairman.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rita Devnarai, member.
Good morning, all, and welcome. Laura Lizama Leasing, member.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year to us all. Keith Scotland, member.
I now go on to officials from the MTS.
Good morning, Jackie Lazarus, Chairman. Happy New Year to you all.
Good morning, everyone. Lanop Ratan Singh, CEO.
Yes.
Good morning, Adila Ilahi, Corporate Secretary, Legal Advisor.
Good morning, Alana Hussain, Divisional Manager of Human Resources.
Good morning, Richard Ferguson, Chief Financial Officer.
Good morning, Kareem Paul, Chief Accountant.
Yes, and may I invite the, do we have anyone else from MTS?
No, that's it.
We will then at this time invite public officials from, public officials from the Ministry of Public Utilities to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. Nicolette Duke, Permanent Secretary.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Arlene Collins, Director, Economic Research and Planning.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Curtis Augustine, Monitoring and Evaluation Coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. Janet Cupid Sintele, Financial Specialist.
Thank you so very much. And the public official from the Ministry of Finance Investments Division.
Good morning, everyone. Ryan Maharaj, Senior Business Analyst, Investments Division, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, everyone. Junior Dwari, Business Analyst, Ministry of Finance.
Yeah, well, thank you all. And once again, on behalf of the committee, welcome. May I also advise participants that you are advised that your microphones should remain muted until recognized by the chair. I would now like to advise that this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, and the rest of the channels will broadcast these proceedings sometime later on. It is going to be a delayed broadcast, but at the moment we are live on YouTube. May I at this time invite Mrs. Lazarus from the MTS to make just a brief 2-minute opening remarks at this time. Mrs. Lazarus.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Public Accounts Committee, Wade Mark, Senator Wade Mark. Members of the committee, members of the viewing public, all good morning. We appreciate the opportunity to once again tell the MTS story to the committee and to the nation. My name is Jackie Lazarus, and I've had the honor of being of service to the National Maintenance and Security Company Limited as chairman for the past 7 years. For over 43 years, MTS has been tasked with maintaining and securing the schools of this country, and we have done so diligently. However, while school security once focused on the protection of all students, while school security once focused on protecting the school premises, today, safety in school requires the protection of all students, teachers from violence, exposure to threats, use of weapons, theft, bullying, harassment, sale or use of illegal substances on the school grounds, and other similar emergencies. School safety is very important to us all, and the welfare of our students is directly linked to improved school and student outcomes. It is for this reason that MTS has embarked on a school-based law enforcement training of our security officers assigned to schools. This initiative was a priority under our previous strategic plan, which resulted in over 700 security officers assigned to schools being trained prior to the pandemic to better equip them to handle emergencies within the school environment. The world is changing rapidly, and while the past 5 years have been difficult, in particular the period of 2020 and 2021, due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, we faced our challenges proactively. We learned quickly from the pandemic that the way to manage our business, finances, and our employees needed to change, and began making better use of technology, which resulted in improved communication with our clients and employees. Our strong client support and stakeholder loyalty is evidenced that our focus on quality services is paying dividends. Notwithstanding, we are always seeking to improve, and under our new strategic plan, we hope to modernize aspects of our operations and improve efficiencies and productivity through the digitalization of our records, data, and processes. The objective is to improve communication with our clients and our over 6,600 employees, most of whom work at over 900 client locations spread throughout the length and breadth of the country. The current strategic plan continues to build upon the successes of the previous plan, of which we are especially proud, but which were realized through prudent management and leadership. Our previous strategic plan, 2016 to 21, realized many achievements which are detailed in our present plan, and I invite members who have not yet read it to do so. MTS's long record of good governance endures, and we continue to be stable and trustworthy. This is the foundation upon which we have been able to strengthen our relationships with our stakeholders. If nothing else, the great success from COVID-19 for the company was that the MTS team members remain loyal, dedicated, and willing to share in the pain in order to ensure continued sustainability and progress of the company. We have developed our most recent strategic plan for the period 22 to 26, with the objective of addressing our challenges and creating a path forward for the company to ensure that we remain relevant to the needs and demands of our stakeholders in this current environment without being a burden to the state. We look forward to continuing to serve our nation by staying true to our core values and raising the bar even higher to help us to do better, provide more value, and deliver the quality service that our clients expect and our nation deserves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chairman. May I now invite the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities to make brief remarks.
Good morning, Chairman,
members of the committee, counterparts from MTS and the Ministry of Finance Investments Division. We at the Ministry of Public Utilities are pleased to be here to contribute to this discussion on an inquiry into the financial statements of the National Maintenance Training and Security Company Limited. As the line ministry for MTS, we are particularly proud of all that MTS has achieved, and we continue to play a role in supporting the initiatives and the objectives that MTS has set itself in any way possible. It is for this reason that we are glad to be part of this discussion, and we look forward to the recommendation not only of the committee, but of all gathered here, so that we are able to further enhance our support to MTS as it executes on its mandate and responsibilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Permanent Secretary. I will now ask one of the two officials from the Ministry of Finance Investment Division to provide us with brief remarks.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning again. Our prepared statement. The Investments Division of the Ministry of Finance is responsible for executing the investment policy as prescribed by the Cabinet. Accordingly, the mandate of the division includes oversight, monitoring, and where necessary, the rationalization of both equity holdings in commercial enterprises. The National Maintenance Training and Security Company Limited is one of those enterprises. Additionally, the division acts on behalf of the Minister of Finance, Corporation Sole, and carries out a corporate function. This includes representation of the Minister at shareholders' meeting, establishment of new state enterprises, and divestment of state enterprises when it becomes feasible to do so. MTS is a wholly owned state enterprise incorporated on November 27, 1979, to provide security and maintenance services to schools and learning institutions in Trinidad and Tobago. The company's mandate was expanded to include ground maintenance, technical maintenance, horticultural landscaping services, and project management services to the wider public. We look forward to today's discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. May I begin as the chairman of this committee by asking just one or two questions, clarification, and guidance on behalf of this committee, and then I'll invite my colleagues to follow. Now, this is directed at the MTS, either Mrs. Lazarus or Mr. Ratan Singh. We have just been told by the official out of the Ministry of Finance Investments Division the mandate of MTS. And that mandate, of course, we are advised, has expanded into project management. So you are into school construction, maintenance, to some extent, I would imagine, and other technical services. This is in addition to your initial mandate of janitorial and security services. My question to either one of the two officials, chairman or the CEO, is simply this. Can you share with this committee what are some of your major challenges? And as you deal with challenges, provide this committee with what you have been doing to overcome and address those challenges. So either the chairman or the CEO can engage this committee, and through this committee, the general public, as it relates to challenges and how have you been coping with those challenges via solutions to address it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if you would permit me, that I would want to make an overall statement, and then I will speak about our challenges. Since the last time we met, MTS was about 38 years old. We are over 43 years now. And on the last occasion when we met, we were updated with our financial statements. And I want to report to you that we are updated with our financial statements. In fact, we have just completed 2022. So since then, we were submitted 17, 18, 19, 20 over the years. And yes, project management is something that we have an add-on to since 2018, but it is not something new to MTS. MTS has been playing a role in project management over the last 2 decades. And we have an organization that is well equipped to handle the project management work that is coming our way from Ministry of Education and several other ministries, but we'll speak a little more on that. I want to say to the committee that MTS is profitable, does not receive a subvention, and we have a population of about 6,640 employees on our register as employees, and we continue to give human service to Trinidad and Tobago. And I will say more about some of these things because our revenue is 550 million based on normal services, and we will gain some more revenue based on the project management. To come specifically, Mr. Chairman, to your question of challenges. The challenge for all state enterprises over the last few years, and we are no different, have been receivables. And when we met on the last occasion, we did discuss the receivables. So that has been a major challenge. Our receivables now stand at about $620 million. At any point in time, it changes because we are invoicing over $42 to $43 million every month. And then, of course, we are collecting monies on a daily basis. I want to say straight away that the way we have met that challenge, especially in 2020 during the COVID period, is that we were granted a loan from the Ministry of Finance to assist with our overdraft, the NIS as a statutory payment, and to pay some months of salaries. I want to also say to the committee that while we would have beefed up our drive in collections, collections are only forthcoming when releases are made from ministries, Ministry of Finance and other ministries to our clients. And post-2022 budget, we have seen a marked increase in collections in MTS. In fact, we would have collected over $100 million more in 2022 than we did for 2021. Our largest debtors continue to be the Ministry of Education, about $340 to $50 million. The judiciary, $92 million. And TTPS, $14 million. THA, $14 million. And HDC, $14 million. Those continue to be our largest debtors, and we continue to pursue. I think I made an error, Mr. Chairman, when I told you TTPS was 14. I think it is actually $32 million. And HDC is 14 million and THA is 14 million. The second challenge that we continue to have as a state agency is the issues of labor relations and industrial relations, particularly with negotiations for our ATM staff. The ATM staff have not been given an increase since 2010, and there are some anomalies that are happening in the organization presently, where the other bargaining units in the organization, TU and EPA in particular, they would have been given an increase in 2013, 2015, thereabout, and those back pays were paid in 2017. They are also due for some negotiating periods to be settled. But what that has done, where the ATM staff was not given any increases since 2010, is that some of the people that they are supervising are being paid more than what the management staff is being paid. It's a little anomaly, and we are awaiting some approvals from the CPO to proceed on this matter. The third challenge we had over the years, and I suspect the whole country, would have been COVID. And the COVID period posed a large challenge for MTS, particularly because we have 6,640 staff, and out of that, nearly 4,000 of them were out at work during the COVID period. We were an essential service. We are an essential service. And I want to thank those employees for coming out every day, every night to secure the assets of Trinidad and Tobago. We did not fail the nation. We came out, and that was a major challenge in terms of a national shutdown, paying salaries to 6,640 persons. And I dare say, Mr. Chairman, we paid salary on time and every time. And to me, we could speak a little more about the COVID lessons learned. We have documented that the COVID period, and we promised to submit some of that information to the Ministry of Public Utilities and Ministry of Finance. And I think as a large organization, the things that we did during COVID in terms of operationalizing our machinery to effect efficiency and effectiveness to Trinidad and Tobago is worthy of hearing somewhere else. The fourth challenge, Mr. Chairman, we raised this in 2017, and this challenge continues to still raise its head, the uneven playing field in which MTS has to operate under. Uneven playing field because we are unionized, we obey all the laws of the land, but we are competitive. So most of our revenue, the $550 million in revenue that we obtain, most of that revenue comes from competitive bidding, a competitive bidding process. And as a result, while we are obeying the laws of the land and paying above minimum wages and observing all the other statutory obligations, we are competing in an environment where there's a low entrance barrier. And therefore, every single person who have a mop and broom want to be a janitorial company and a security company. And as a result, because most of the bids are evaluated on price, it's putting MTS in a situation where, while we are obeying the rules of the land, the playing field has become very uneven. And the fifth challenge, which has not yet occurred, but could be a challenge for us, and we have made ourselves very clear on this matter, is the question of the private security bill. And Mr. Chairman, we will speak more about that a little later, if time permits. So in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman, those are our challenges. And if I may, Mr. Chairman, if you permit me, if I could speak on some of our achievements at the same time, at the other side of the coin.
Yes, briefly, thank you.
So as I said, Mr. Chairman, we pride ourselves on good corporate governance, and we have completed all our financial statements up to 2022. We just completed 2022, and 2017 to 21 have been submitted to our line ministry and the Ministry of Finance. We have completed the last strategic plan, and we have updated and put forward a new strategic plan, 2022-2026. That was also submitted to the MPU and to the MOF, and that plan has been activated right now. Mr. Chairman, we are also very profitable. And I wouldn't say let me just say, Mr. Chairman, we are profitable. Our profit for 2021 audited statement was $7 million before taxes. And we have moved the company over the last 18 years from a negative $100 million retained earnings to a positive $64 million in retained earnings. Mr. Chairman, on the last occasion, you would have heard from our last strategic plan that we wanted to execute a project management more vigorous. I want to report that we have achieved this in that now we are project managers for the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Youth Development, the Ministry of Public Utilities, TT Post, the Ministry of Digitalization, Public Administration, the Ministry of Finance, the Office of the Prime Minister, Communications Division, and Community Development. And Mr. Chairman, we celebrated during that period our 40th anniversary, and MTS continues to live on, and we hope to be here for a long time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Ratan Singh. I know that MTS, based on what you have said, has a very proud track record. Could you just advise this committee when those financial audited statements for 17 to 21 were submitted to your line ministry?
All our financial statements, for example, when we completed 2017, it would have been submitted in 2018, and so on and so on. So it would have been submitted in respective years. But I would ask Mr. Our Corporate Secretary, who has responsibility for that, to prefer an answer to that.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, again. All our financial accounts are always submitted on time to both Line Ministry and Corporation Sole, as well as the Trinidad and Tobago Securities Exchange Commission on time within the month of March the following year, following the completion of the financial year. So for 2017 accounts will be submitted by March 31st, 2018, and so forth for all the years. We've always submitted on time.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, continue, ma'am. Continue. Sorry about that. You were saying something, ma'am?
She said at least for the last decade, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thank you, thank you. Mr. Ratan Singh, I have a final question to your good self. Could you advise this committee how much money is being collected by MTS on a daily basis? And if you can indicate to us, how is this money that is being collected on a daily basis being used?
So, Mr. Chairman, it's difficult to answer on a daily basis because we'll receive monies when monies are released from the Ministry of Finance to our clients. So sometimes for the month we may not receive any money. And then the following month we will receive a larger sum of money. So, for example, what I have in front of me, for the year 2022, we would have collected $620 million. And we would have invoiced $600 million. So this is one of the most successful years within the last decade in the collections. I have on file here, 2019, we would have invoiced $500,000 and we would have collected less than $400,000. We had a shortfall of $126 million. In 2020, we would have invoiced 500,000. We collected 385 million. 500 million. And we had a shortfall in collection of 165 million. In 2021, we had a shortfall in collection of 101 million. In 2022, however, we had a surplus of $20 million in collections above what we invoice. So the monies are utilized, and this money is utilized mostly for salaries. Because we have a staff of over nearly 6,700 persons, our salary and statutory deductions for the month is close to $38 to $40 million, depending on how many fortnights the month may have. So we're talking about nearly $500 million has to be paid in salaries for the year. So 95% of our monies, our collection goes back into salaries into the organization.
All right, thank you so very much. I'll now invite Mr. Rushton Paré to be followed by Mr. Member Keith Scotland, in that order.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and again, welcome to our guest this morning. Mr. Ratan Singh, I do want to concur two things in that: the importance of MTS, and I have first-hand experience in terms of the quality of work that the MTS officers do provide, and especially our schools here in the Mayaro constituency. And the other thing too is that I do share a concern with the issue around the uncompetitive nature of the bids that you have to provide when you are following the regulations, while other security companies, as you say, anybody could pick up a mop and bucket and provide janitorial services. And I do know that private security bill went dormant somewhere prior to the last general elections, and I do hope that it comes back to the Parliament some point in time, because it is creating quite some concerns in terms of the general private security industry after you had a lot of incidents lately with the robberies and so on those armored vehicles, and a lot of it ties in back to the quality and the training and the systems involved in the private security industry. So I want to concur with that. I want to focus for the next couple of minutes in terms of this debt that is owed by the Ministry of Education to MTS. I think that's the elephant in the room here according to our records here, is $384 million. If I could just segue to ask the investment division a question, that is Mr. Maraj. Yes, Mr. Maraj or Ms. Mohammed. Mr. Maraj or Ms. Mohammed, any one of you could respond to the queries that I have. In Mrs. Lazarus' opening, she had a very powerful delivery in terms of the importance of MTS and the work they do in our school system and the broad range of services in terms of the HSSE and the importance of the safety and welfare of not only students and teachers and the protection of the assets of the state. And the question I want to ask, first question I want to ask Mr. Maraj or Ms. Mohammed, do you agree with Mrs. Lazarus' position that the Ministry of Education is a critical client in terms of the overall welfare of our society?
Thank you, member. Yes, I will agree with her, but I don't want to elaborate too much because I don't want to talk on behalf or say anything out of turn or in that context, but I will agree with her.
Okay, and I'm the fact that I have two documents in front of me, which is signed by your permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and I suspect it's it looks like Dukaran or something like that. I can't catch the writing. And then it's another document that was one is to the clerk of our house here at the Parliament, and the other one is to Miss Lenore Baptiste Simon, Ministry of Education. And since both of you all are the representatives of the Ministry of Finance, I suspect I would hope that you can answer the questions on behalf of the persons who would have signed these two documents. Now, in both documents, there was a query as to what is being put in place for the Ministry of Education debt to be sorted out in terms of MTS to be able to get that money to continue providing the quality and the importance of the service as indicated by Ms. Lazarus. But what is interesting to me is the language. And if you allow me, Mr. Chairman, just to read on the penultimate paragraph of a letter dated June 29, 2018, Ministry of Finance Investments Division to Ms. Jackie Sampson Miguel, Clerk of the House. And I read the paragraph. The Ministry of Finance in the past has addressed this issue, and this is with regards to the debt to the Ministry of Education, on behalf of MTS, and has advocated for urgent steps to be taken for liquidation of arrears to reduce the debilitating effect of untimely payments on MTS operations. So this is the Ministry of Finance is advising the Parliament, this is our group, that they have advocated for the Ministry of Education to take particular steps to liquidate the arrears. And then the second letter, which has the same date, June 29, 2018, and this time it is for the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Ms. Lenore Baptiste Simon. And in its penultimate paragraph as well, the Ministry of Finance Investment Division makes a similar statement. And I read, in view of the committee's recommendation, they are asking Ms. Lenore Baptiste Simon, who is the PS of the Ministry of Education, to please indicate the Ministry of Energy's strategy to liquidate its debt to MTS and its plan going forward to keep within the agreed payment terms with MTS. So in my mind, and I could be wrong, somebody will correct me, is that there's an expectation that the Ministry of Education has the responsibility of liquidating that debt to MTS. So these are my questions to Mr. Maraj and Ms. Mohammed, right? And I will ask these questions because I don't know the answer, and perhaps you will educate me a bit on how the systems work. Now, is the Ministry of Education, their operation, is that a money-making enterprise that they can generate revenue to pay debt to MTS? Yes or no?
Member, no. They have to get releases from the Ministry of Finance to liquidate those debts.
Okay. So we agree that they have to get money from the Ministry of Finance. So it has to come from the Ministry of Finance. It's not going to come from anywhere else. My next question. Does the Ministry of Education, does it present its debt servicing requirement to the Ministry of Finance when preparing its budget requirements on an annual basis? Basically, what I want to get at is, prior to the reading of the budget every year, is the Ministry of Finance aware of the debt that the Ministry of Education owes to MTS and whether relevant provisions are made from the Ministry of Finance, because they don't get money anywhere else. MTS is, Ministry of Education is not a profit-making company. So that means the Ministry of Finance have to put money inside it to liquidate those debts. Is the Ministry of Finance aware year on year of the debt servicing requirements to MTS?
Thank you again, member. Yes, we are aware of that. However, it has competing interests and funding issues. You will know that in 2023 was the reallocation. The Ministry of Education got 279 million approximately to settle those to settle their debts to MTS. Both janitorial services and security services. Yeah.
Okay. So in my opening question, I asked if you agreed with Ms. Lazarus in terms of her plea, in terms of the importance that MTS plays to the education system, to the education system that impacts the society in such a critical way. And you agreed with that. And you're also telling me now that there is competing interest, right? Which I agree there is competing interest, but prioritization can and should be made based on what Ms. Lazarus said, and you agreed with her. I know you don't want to go into too much of additional commentary on it, but I suspect you agree with her. Taking that into consideration, the question, my final question on this, based on what you've now said, is that the Ministry of Finance is asking the Ministry of Education what strategies they can put in place to liquidate that debt. If the Ministry of Education is not a money-making enterprise, can you tell this committee what fiscal space or strategy can the Ministry of Education have in terms of liquidating that debt based on both letters to the Clerk of the House here in the Parliament and the one to the Ministry of Education, the Permanent Secretary? And for my information, probably there, I don't know, I'm asking, what fiscal space or strategy can the Ministry of Education place in its system to liquidate those debts if the money is not coming from the Ministry of Finance?
Member, thank you again. I really don't want to comment on what the Ministry of Education may do. However, there's something that at the media review, if there's any shortfall in allocation, the Ministry of Education reaches out to the Ministry of Finance, and the votes can be supplemented. But to go further than that, I really cannot comment further.
So outside of the media review, which you've now identified as one option, you can't tell this committee of any other options, because you are asking, as it's written here in this documentation, not you're asking, you're telling. You're telling the Ministry of Education to advise you of what strategy. I am putting it to you that if the only way that the ministry gets money is from the coffers of the consolidated fund through the Parliament, how do you untie the hands of the Ministry of Education, who is, as Mr. Lazarus says, an important client, as MTS is providing a critical service that has societal impact? Why it is, and in my reading, and Mr. Chairman, I could be wrong, but in my reading, that the Ministry of Finance is basically telling the Ministry of Education, look, beat all your body with this debt, right? Mid-year review, you come to Parliament and we will change a few heads because we're not getting more money. We might move money from head to head. So to get more money from MTS, we may have to move air conditioning repairs. We may have to take out some furniture repairs, whatever heads that they're on. So my take, Mr. Murad, from the Ministry of Finance, I think it is unreasonable to ask the Ministry of Finance and to report to this Parliament as well that the ministry is telling the Ministry of Education Permanent Secretary, look, you find your way to do this. That is what I am reading in the 2 pieces of instruction here, which I find is unreasonable for the ministry, because the Ministry of Finance knows the debt. You have acknowledged the importance of the Ministry of Education, the importance of what MTS is doing. And I will close, Mr. Chairman, on this particular line with, perhaps, and I know we don't have anybody from the Ministry of Education here today, but I would really like to find out from both the Ministry of Finance in a subsequent question, or probably a request for additional information, what space does the Ministry of Education have in its fiscal meandering to get money to pay off this debt? And if they don't do it, they continue have MTS struggling for this $384 million. So historically, Mr. Chairman, I have come to these meetings several occasions, and when I look at the explanations from the investment divisions to all state enterprises, it sometimes appears that it's a rudimentary thing. We write some letters, we beg you to do better, but there is no teeth. There's no teeth to make sure things happen. And I was really surprised reading the 2 documents, and I saw it like a trap and pass that the Ministry of Education should really be dealing with that. So Mr. Chairman, I would probably pass on to Member Scotland, because I know we want to prosecute some matters on receivables as well. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And Mrs. Scotland, the floor is yours.
Chairman, thank you. Just give me 10 seconds, please, Chair. I'm trying to adjust my camera. Right. Chairman, are you seeing me?
Not.
Okay.
While you are adjusting,
am I being seen, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
thank you very much, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Chairman, my first question is directed to the MTS. We are told that they have their audited financials up to 2022. Can I ask through you, Chairman, when was that done? When was that achieved?
If I may, one of their representatives did indicate, Mr. Scotland, that in accordance with the state operating manual, they have stuck to the deadline of submitting their financial audited accounts at the end of the following year, which is March 31st, to the aligned ministry, to the Ministry of Finance, to the Securities and Exchange Commission. So it's in that order. They have done that. So all the accounts from 2017-18 right up to 2021-2022 would have been submitted in accordance with the state operating manual.
And Chairman, through you, was that done for each year? Through you again, can I ask if that was done
Yes, yes. According to MTS submission, yes, it was done.
Mr. Chairman, the only year not submitted is 2022. It's now completed and we will submit that within the next couple of weeks. But we have submitted up to 2021.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chairman, we were told that the outstanding, I'm dealing now with the outstanding receivables. In the document submitted to us, Chairman, we are now told that there's 600 million outstanding in receivables. Did I hear that correct from Mr. Ratan Singh?
Yes, member, 620 million.
Chairman, may I ask, what, out of this 600 million, how much of that debt is 4 years old or more? Is there any quantum? Can I ask Mr. Ferguson or Mrs. Lazarus, how much of that is 4 years old or older?
It could be about 50%, Mr. Member, sorry, over 50%.
And have you, through your legal department and your other operative, secured a commitment to ensure that that does not become statute barred in case you need to action recovery?
So very good question, member. The problem is that all we can do as a state agency, based on the state monitoring manual, is we cannot take legal action against the state or the other ministries. So what we do to keep the debt alive is that we write consistently, almost on a monthly basis, informing our clients about these debts. We continue to meet with them, continue to treat with them. But to take any kind of legal letter to them or response to them on this matter is not allowed based on the state monitoring manual.
No, my question, because you are in some way governed, in some aspect governed by the Companies Act. Do you get acknowledgement of the debt from these people who are owing, which will keep the debt current as opposed to allowing the 4 year? That's the question.
We get acknowledgements, member, from a large number of them. The public service sometimes do not respond in the way we want them to respond, in the timeliness that we want them to respond to the acknowledgement. But we have acknowledgements from most of our clients.
Well, Chair, through you, may I suggest that maybe the time has come for MTS to be able to action recoveries of monies, because as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is monies for goods and services already delivered. Am I correct?
Correct.
Well, Chairman, through you, may I suggest that maybe this could be a recommendation coming from the Public Account Enterprises, this committee, that MTS be somehow there be an amendment, but be given the ability to recover receivables if and or when they are at the cusp of being statute barred, because then you are at the you then are at the mercy of the debtor of whether or not it is paid.
We will take note of your recommendation, Mr. Scotland.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman, I would now like to move on to another item regarding vacation leave policy. And may I, through you, Chair, ask whether there is a specific policy at MTS as it relates to vacation leave. Is there a vacation leave policy?
Mr. Ratan Singh?
We'll pass this on to Alana Hussain.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
member, for your question. So yes, we do have a vacation leave policy in our human resource policy manual. And the policy is that employees can accumulate half their amount, half their entitlement per year, up to 2 years. Now,
And go on, sorry.
So I just wanted to add to say that is the policy. However, we've had some challenges, obviously through COVID-19, in ensuring that employees proceed on leave because of state-home orders.
And do you have a policy as it relates to the implementation of that leave?
Yes, so the policy is that every year, all the divisions are supposed to provide us with a roster of the vacation leave to be taken for the year. And that roster is managed by the HR department, and a report given at the end of the year to the divisions to ensure that there was compliance with utilization of vacation leave.
I see. Chairman, through you again, and this question, it straddles the line ministry, which is the Ministry of Public Utilities and the Ministry of Finance. Can I ask if there has been any, and I want to go back to the receivables, because some of the receivables and the bulk of the receivables are set in public enterprises. Is there any meeting of the mind, so to speak, as it relates to some sort of plan for the reduction? So, in other words, have you met with your line ministry? Have you met with the fellow ministry, Ministry of Finance, to discuss a way forward as it relates to the reduction of that amount? You would agree with, well, to my mind, Chairman, to my simple mind, 620 million is quite a lot of money.
Who would you like?
Chairman?
Yes. Yes.
May I address that question first?
Of course.
I'm not sure whether the Ministry of Finance would like to respond, but I'd just like to give some information of what we have been doing here at the Ministry of Public Utilities. We do agree with the member, as with the MTS, that there's a very large quantum of debt for or liability on the part of state agencies. So what we have been doing over the years and continue to do consistently is to reach out to the ministries. Every year when we get the allocations, we would look at the allocations to different ministries in terms of the line items for security and janitorial. And we would write to the ministries asking them to submit to us a plan of how they would be disposing of those allocations. Now, being mindful that even though a ministry might carry a certain amount of debt, the ministry can only dispose in any particular year of up to the amount of its allocations. We are also mindful that some ministries employ other agencies in terms of security and janitorial. So even if we see a particular figure in an allocation to a ministry for security or janitorial, it may be that that allocation is not only to service MTS, it may be to service other agencies that that ministry may employ. However, we are focused in asking the ministry to remit monies to MTS for its services, mindful that these agencies as well, these ministries as well, are currently also being serviced by MTS. So they can only remit up to their allocation, but we continue to lobby the ministries to make payments to MTS and to let us know when they have made these payments and when they have asked the Ministry of Finance releases. So we as well could be speaking to the Ministry of Finance and encouraging those releases from the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Public Utilities is very consistent in this type of support and in ensuring that we continue to press our sister ministries and agencies to remit the monies that will get them eventually out of a state of debt to the MTS.
Chairman, may I get a response from the MTS or from the other ministry before I move on through with my next area of inquiry?
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. I made the point earlier that while we had a large amount of receivables, and we still do, what we saw after making a lot of representation to the Ministry of Finance and to the Ministry of Public Utilities, and they did represent us, what we saw post-2022 budget is a different trajectory, a one that was positive, and we received almost $100 million extra in terms of payments for 2022. That payment was very useful because we were able to now pay deductions to all the credit unions that we were owing, all the banking institutions that we were owing, our overdraft. We were able to pay most of our suppliers. We were able to pay all of the principals to NIS, which we continue to pay, and we were able to pay some retirees, and we have started the process of paying retirees. So going forward, the forecast going forward, based on the information that we are seeing, is that allocations were made in the 2022 budget for MTS's funding. I am hoping and praying that that money is released to the various clients and it will be passed to us. Secondly, the Ministry of Finance, especially during the COVID period, given that the receivables had crossed, actually the receivables last year, in 2021 was $715 million. This year it's down to 620. So we got an extra $100 million in payments that we didn't get in the year 2021. So there is a positive change. The point I wanted to make about the Ministry of Finance is that they did assist us in 2020 in giving us a loan. It's on our books as a loan. It's been honored by it's been paid by the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Public Utilities, and that loan was used to pay salaries for that period of time in lieu of not having monies being paid for the receivables. So that loan was paid for salaries and paid some NIS and paid some overdraft for the bank. So we want to thank the Ministry of Finance actually for helping us with that loan that is being serviced by the Ministry of Public Utilities. Going forward, member and Mr. Chairman, members, I am hoping from what I'm seeing in the budget 2022 is that there'll be a positive change to our receivables, and we are looking forward for those payments.
My Chairman, my last question on that, on this item, the loan received, is it an interest bearing? Do you have to pay interest on it? And is there a concomitant interest added to the receivables? Because then you will have a dichotomy where you have to take a loan because you are in a deficit receivables position, and you pay interest on that loan, but your receivables does not attract interest. Can anyone?
Very good question, member. The answer is that the loan do bear an interest, but the matter is not for us to pay. This is a matter being serviced by the Ministry of Public Utilities and Finance. We do not pay that loan. It comes out straight from MPU, so it doesn't affect us. The second thing is receivables, unfortunately, in the government circles, you do not accrue interest in receivables. So that matter will not arise as long as it is in the frame of reference that it is right now in terms of payments.
Chairman, through you, and this was an area of concern. I am told that there's a outstanding time frame relative to settling wage negotiations, and it goes back as far as 8 years in some instances. And if
Well-
I'm to paraphrase Mr. Ratan Singh, in some instances, you have persons who are below in the hierarchical structure because they have had their negotiations completed, being paid more than their supervisors. Why has that situation been allowed, Chairman, through you? And I know this will be a concern for all of us. Why has that situation been allowed to develop?
Yes, Mr. Ratan Singh?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the committee may well know, state enterprises cannot conclude negotiations without the approval of the CPO. And so what we would have done as a state enterprise is we would have done our negotiations with our bodies, various bodies, and we would have submitted those findings and our recommendations to the Ministry of Public Utilities. Ministry of Public Utilities, I am aware that they would have transmitted that to the CPU. So the matter resides at the level of the CPU or somewhere else, but it does not reside in MTS. It is a matter that is external to us, it's exogenous to us, and we really await some ruling on this matter.
Well, but Chairman, through you, and I will ask maybe Mrs. Hussain or Mrs. Elahi, or even the people in finance, or even the chair, that cannot bode well for good industrial relations practices. It simply cannot, because what you have is not a heuristic anomaly, but you have a real anomaly in your organization where, due to the lack of some process and the process of collective bargaining, Chairman, in your other incarnation, is by no means novel to MTS. Why haven't we, why has it not been pursued as an urgent concern so that you can level your playing field in your organization and everyone can feel that they're being treated fairly?
Yes. Who would like to respond?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Thank you.
Member, I share your angst, and I would not say that MTS has not treated this matter as an urgent concern. MTS, like other agencies, are charged with following the process, and matters such as these are channeled through the CPO's office and must make their way onto an agenda for the committee that deals with the remuneration packages for persons employed in state agencies. So as Mr. Ratan Singh would have said, all the relevant documents from MTS as well as the bargaining unit trade unions would have been submitted to the Ministry of Public Utilities. The Ministry of Public Utilities has conveyed these to the office of the CPO, and it lies now for the CPO to complete its analysis and for the matter to make its way onto the agenda of the Human Resource Advisory Committee, which deals with these remuneration matters. So MTS has been, very efficient in terms of identifying the importance and the urgency of this matter. And we feel that in due course, this matter will make its way onto the agenda and be appropriately dealt with. Thank you.
Chairman, hopefully my final area of inquiry until my other members make their rounds. Does MTS have I see that you're expanding into project management services. Does MTS have a policy whereby in your recruiting process, you hire persons, of course qualified, but from specific areas where projects are going to be implemented? Or do you have a policy whereby you would assist, of course, bearing in mind the prerequisites that you will assist persons who are less fortunate in having a life chance to have a career in janitorial services or even in services of security, once, of course, all criteria are met? Do you have such a policy? Can I direct that to either Mrs. Lazarus or the chairman or the CEO, Mr. Ratan Singh, please?
Sure.
Thank you very much, member. I'm not sure if we have a policy to say we are going to hire persons in certain areas. What we do, we have a policy of hiring all persons in Trinidad and Tobago. So we hire nationals. We do not hire non-nationals. That's the first policy that we have. Second policy that we have, in fact, our organization, we hire mostly persons who are in need, that are in depressed areas. I can safely say more than 60 to 70% of our employees come from areas that are very challenged. And we do try to hire persons from the surrounding areas where we have our contracts with schools or ministries as far as we can. So we will treat with vested interest in the community. I must say, we did change our policy within the last decade in terms of hiring more women in the security division. And that have now put a ratio where we have almost maybe more women than men in the security division, because there are a lot of single mothers in the country. And remember, you would know in your own constituency in Port of Spain South, there are a lot of persons who would apply for work. Now there are some depressed areas and there's some areas of concern. And we do reach out and try to assist throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to say, over the years, member, we have employed nearly 30,000 persons in Trinidad and Tobago. Presently, our workforce is 6,640, and we have been hiring persons in those areas. And that is why, when we started project management, I made it clear that no project will be started here without funding being available. So one of the criteria with various ministries, we have project management services. We ensure we get the fundings up front for those projects, or at least know where it's coming from, in which vote from the ministries. And the reason for that is that we have to find $37 to $38 million a month to pay salaries to people who probably would have already spent their last salaries the fortnight before. Because these people are very, very on the low end of the spectrums of salaries. And therefore, your question is taken from the point of view that we have addressed the situation, and this is another role that MTS play in national development and nation building, in treating with these depressed areas in Trinidad and Tobago.
Chairman, I am very heartened to receive that response from Mr. Ratan Singh. Chairman, I would give way to my fellow members, and if there is any time left, I will crave your indulgence if there are any issues that I would need to prosecute. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll now invite Mrs. Lizama Singh to take the floor at this time.
Thank you very kindly, Chairman. And once again, it's very good to have MTS here, and I'm quite satisfied so far with the progress that we've been hearing from MTS. I'm particularly pleased to hear about the soon-to-be or seeming or apparent change in the receipt of payments of monies due to you, because I was concerned that perhaps MTS was not able to keep up with its payments for NIS and VAT and whatever other debts that would incur naturally because you are a business organization. I'm happy to hear about $100 million and the paying of the retirees, or starting to pay the retirees. I think that is something that must be complimented, and I'm really pleased about that turnaround. What I want to know, please, is do you have a figure perhaps of what you have actually collected since the last time we met with you, to the CEO, perhaps?
Thank you very much, member. Since the last time we met, we would have collected, I have it here, but I didn't sum it up, but we would have collected about $2.2 billion in collection.
Okay, so in approximately, you were last here about a year ago?
No,
Is
no,
that
we
about
met in 2017. On this
27?
committee, and with this committee, this is the PAC. And I think you're referring to when we met with
And
JSC last year.
the other one, yes, yes, yes. And so over the past 4 years, you've been able to collect just about, past 5 or 6 years, you've been able to collect just about $2 billion.
Above $2 billion.
You're significantly insofar as being able to manage your own finances, yes? My question follows now, please, with the project management services. I know that Member Scotland would have asked some questions about that. But insofar as the project management services go, can you please give me some information about that, please, about who your new clients are and how that goes? I know we had some brief discussions around it, but if you can, I'd be grateful.
Right. So thank you very much, member. In 2017, when we met, we only had 2 clients at the time, which was Ministry of Community Development and NALIS, I believe. And we had on our strategic plan that we were going vigorously searching after project management. Since then to now, I'm pleased to report, as I said earlier in the statement, we now have the Ministry of Education School Repair Program. And I dare say, in 2018, when we started, no school was closed because of construction issues. 2019, 2020, 2021. We worked through even the COVID, we got special permission to work and have all those schools repaired. So that's the first project we have for project management. Secondly, we have a project under the Ministry of Finance, which is the client, or who is the client, and the user will be education. And that would have been some schools that was supposed to be completed. Those are some priority schools, and we started doing some of them. We finished actually about 12, and we're on a second phase doing another 7, and there's a third phase to do another 3 or 4. So that's for the Ministry of Finance. That project, the first phase was approximately $400 million. The second phase is $269 million for the Ministry of Finance, and that is to do not school repair, but to complete school buildings that were not completed previously. The third client that we got is the Ministry of Public Utilities. They have been using us to do some work at the Dublin radar station, meteorological office. And under that ministry, also we have TT Post. We have just got into a memorandum of understanding with them to repair, refurbish, and restore some legacy postal offices throughout the country. We have about 12, 13 of them we are doing some costing on at the present time. The third ministry is the Ministry of Youth Development and National Services, where the cabinet would have approved for us to do some youth camps. We have already started some, Chatham, Presto Presto, St. Michael's, and we are doing the St. Madeleine Boys Male Transition Home. We are doing Los Bajos, and we are doing Laventil, El Dorado, and the Milat one in Mausica. Those are some projects that we are working on right now. There are some more on the drawing board with the Ministry of Youth Development. The 4th or 5th client is the Ministry of Digitalization. So we have been awarded a contract by the Ministry of Digitalization to refurbish some community centers or access centers to equip them for digitalization purposes. I believe it's quite a large number. Values about $30 to $40 million in work to be done with that ministry. The 5th or 6th ministry, I'm losing track because there's a lot of ministries. TT Post, I think I mentioned. Public administration is another client on the block. We have been given some work, and we are being quoted for some more work for the Superior Administrative Complex, the Tunampuna Administrative Complex, some buildings in Oxford Street in Port of Spain, and there soon to be a Point 14 Administrative Complex. So those are some of our key clients. We continue to do some work with NALIS. We also have the Office of the Prime Minister, where we were awarded a contract to move the office, the Office of Communication, to that from over down to the Office of the Prime Minister in Port of Spain. I think by and large, those are most of our, and those are most of our clients so far. So we have been very successful, member, in stretching and dealing with the works in that division. And I dare say we have been coping well, and we have been producing the quality of the work and the timeliness of the work within budget and within the time frame. In fact, in many cases, we have been coming in below the budget in these projects.
Thanks very much, Mr. CEO. I'm really impressed to see the turnaround and to see the work that you have been doing. I like how you ended with the quality of your work and your time frame. Clearly, you are in great demand now, so that's good. That's good to hear about the pivoting. Particularly, let me compliment you on both working towards the preserving of the built heritage of the country, which would be the historical post offices, as well as the future of the country, which would be the access centers through Ministry of Digital Transformation. So coming out of all of this work that you have here, you've listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 7 ministries who are your clients. Are you sufficiently resourced to do? I know you have said that you'll be able to, you've been doing everything within time and within budget. But is there any further resource that you think that MTS needs or is lacking to be perhaps more efficient? Because clearly your demand may increase in the coming years if you continue with this level of performance and efficiency.
So thank you, member. That's a very good question. So we started off the division with about 14 or 15 persons. The division is now grown to about 25. We have a head of the department. We have several engineers on board. We have several project assistants on board. We have a project accountant assigned to that division. And we have several consultants external to MTS that are used to do the QSing work, the structural engineering work, the architectural work, and the MEP works with those projects. We just this week have put, well, a couple of weeks ago, we have put an ad out, and we just this week, we interviewed for more engineers and more project assistants. And we try to hire those persons based on a contract basis. So if these works have come to the completion, those contracts will also come to an end, those employment contracts. So we are resourcing ourselves as we go forward. MTS has a good structure and a good base in terms of our finance division. And we have actually moved forward in making payments online. So we pay all our contractors online. So we are actually digitalizing MTS from a perspective of online banking. And we are working with our consultants, our engineers, and our team and our clients in a timely basis. So far, we are coping. And if we continue to get more work, of course, we'll resource ourselves a little more.
Thank you. And my final question, or rather, let me just make a quick comment before I want to apologize, because I did mix you up with my JSC meeting with the state enterprises when I asked you if I saw you 6 months ago, but that was a different committee meeting. But my final question now is that in your strategic plan for 2022-2026, I suspect that you've now kicked that completely into action and taking you forward over the next few years. I know that you had mentioned perhaps looking for non-state sector and private entities to be your clients. Is that still a plan? Is that still in train? And if so, what is the status? If not, what was the reason?
Right. So thank you again, member. So we would have completed our last strategic plan, and we updated last year a pretty good document, strategic plan 2022 to 2026. And in fact, we have an implementation plan also attached to it, and we will be presenting for the first quarter to our next board meeting, which is the next couple of weeks, as to the progress of this plan. The plan really have 3 main objectives: maintaining quality and trust as the first objective. And under that objective, the initiatives will be cash flow management, quality service and profitability performance targets, and security in mission critical facilities in crisis or emergency. The second is building on strengths, which will be new services and clients, and that is where your question is, and engineering and project management. So the second objective under building on our strengths, because our largest strength would be our employees, and our strength even larger than that actually. So our largest strength really is our brand equity. The brand called MTS is a good brand, and 43 years of history, good branding, and we intend to use that brand, especially of collecting monies only from the government sector is a bit challenging. We have decided to look into the private sector. So the strategic plan is geared to looking at new products, new markets, and seeing whether or not we can penetrate the private sector, because our model presently cannot penetrate the private sector, given the process of our employment and the way we are unionized. If we have to enter the private sector, we have to enter into some parts of the product life cycle that is unique and different than what we are doing right now. So for example, we are setting up an R&D section. In fact, we already started the research, because the research will form part of the private sector development. And we are going to research the following products and markets: event security for high-profile clients, individual, estate, and corporate threat assessments, close protection security, elite facilities and maintenance services, elite commercial estate and home maintenance, landscaping services for office buildings and private sector buildings. Those are going to be some of the areas we are looking to move forward, building on our strengths of security, of janitorial maintenance, of property management, of landscaping, and our knowledge of our client and the country. So but we are going to do the research, and we are going to then enter into the market at a point where it makes sense for MTS to enter into the market.
Thank you very kindly, Chairman. That ends my this round of questioning on my behalf. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so very much. May I invite Member Amrita Dionorai? You have to unmute, member.
My apologies. Thank you so much, Chairman. At this point, I want to revert to the whole issue of the account receivables. And in your submission, I saw that you all mentioned that you will be able to secure a written agreement to remit monies on a monthly basis to MTS in order to reduce the large arrears, and that is with the Housing Development Corporation, a written agreement. Can you explain or elaborate whether how this agreement has been working for you so far in terms of reducing the level of arrears with the HDC? Because I saw that in your submissions for June 2022, the outstanding amount owed by HDC was around 11 million. However, when you mentioned the figures earlier today in your introduction, I heard $14 million. So could you elaborate on how this written agreement to pay on a monthly basis with the HGC has been working?
Yeah. Thank you very much, member. That's an interesting question. And I was hoping that question was not going to be asked. But coming out in 2017, when we last met with this committee, we decided to try some other mechanisms. And one of them was to go vigorously behind some state agencies and get into some agreements. So the HCC entered into an agreement with us, and the agreement was to pay $500,000 monthly. When we entered that agreement, we were about $10.8 million in receivables. Today, we are $14 million in receivables. The answer to your question is that the agreement did not work, and it was not adhered to. And we have been speaking with the HDC. We have been speaking to everyone in the HDC about this. And this is a matter that concerns us deeply, because we felt if it's one thing that would have happened with this agreement, that payments would have come, at least the agreement would have been followed. It wasn't followed on this occasion.
Okay, so then with that being said, prior to securing this agreement with the HGC, were you able to secure any other written agreements with any other state, with any other debtors?
No, we didn't pursue many of the state agents, not the state agents. We didn't pursue many ministries. We have very few state agencies. So a state agency is easier to do this. But ministries, when we chatted with ministries with respect to this agreement, it was difficult for a ministry to sign off on an agreement, because their funding comes from a release, and they are not sure when the release is going to happen. So they did not want to commit on a monthly figure to us. So they did not sign off with us. So that's why we were happy when we got the HCC, at least one of the state agencies, to sign off. But it did not happen at the end of the day.
Okay, so then in terms of your lesson learned from this failed attempt of having a written agreement, what would you say you would do to improve or to change, trying to have the state enterprise or the HGC or any other ministry abide by such written agreement? Because with a written agreement, if I understand correctly, it is now legally binding.
Right. So, but I can't take another state agency to court, neither can I take a ministry to court based on the state monitoring manual. So we have all of these heuristic devices, and it sounds good and it looks well on paper. But the reality is I can't use anything else but suasion to collect my money. Now, we would have tried everything under the sun to collect our monies. We are seeing a little turnaround now, and we are happy for it. But to hold any ministry to say, okay, if you don't pay, the only threat I can make is to terminate my services. And that also has to be done responsibly, especially if the client is one that is very critical to national service in the country. So I can't really take a ministry to court or a state agency to court. And the most I might do is advance it. I think what we can do, the next thing I intend to do with these documents is advance it to our line ministry and the Ministry of Finance for they to be involved in this process.
Right. Okay, so I understand your position, but I wanted to revisit this because while I understand the policy perspective from the Ministry of Finance under the State Enterprise Performance Monitoring Manual, it is a guideline tool and it is not legally binding in the sense that your responsibility as part of the board of directors of MTS, you all are legally liable to the company and seeking the interests of the company. That is the utmost priority of MTS. Now, I'm not encouraging that you go and pursue legal matters or go against any sort of relationship that you all would have built with the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Public Utilities, but I want to clearly understand that we are all adults in this room, and we understand that you all as members of the board and the directors are legally liable to the company. And if anything is to go wrong, you are the ones who will be liable.
Noted, member. We'll seek guidance on the matter. Noted.
I just want to move on to, there was another part of your submission. You all mentioned that you will give a breakdown of the equity, the non-current liabilities, and the current liabilities. And the current liabilities to date is $1.09 billion. And you all said that these liabilities included the loan on behalf of EFCL and amounts owed to EFCL contractors. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Thank you for the question, member. Right now, the total loans outstanding on MTS is approximately 1.5 billion. Of that amount, 269 million was a loan taken from NCB Global Finance to construct and outfit the priority schools. 400 million was from NCB Global Finance for payment of EFCL contractors. This was for work done by EFCL contractors. The payments will pass through MTS to pay those contractors. There's another loan for 400 million from FCB. That is to construct and outfit the priority schools. There's another loan for 200 million for NCB Global Finance. That is for the school repair program. And there was a final loan for 300 million from the public bank. That was to assist with the operations of MTS and to pay some NIS. So that's the current status of the loans.
Right, and all of these loans are repaid by the Ministry of Finance, correct?
Yes, all these loans have been guaranteed by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and they are financed by the Ministry of Finance.
Okay, so I understand that 3 of these loans were taken for either school construction or school repairs, but the amount of 400 million that was taken to repay contractors of EFCL. Could you explain why exactly this loan had to pass through the MTS?
Thank you, member. I'd ask the corporate secretary to address this.
At the time that the loan was being taken, EFCL was not in a position to take the loan. And so the government asked MTS to facilitate the payments to contractors. The list of names of contractors to be paid came from the Ministry of Finance. The payments to be made were authorized by the Minister of Finance. And we were just used as a facilitation to pay the contractors. The bank that the loan was given to, FCB, they would have received instructions from the Ministry of Finance as well with a list of contractors and the amounts to pay, and they would have cut the check. So MTS just facilitated the payments to the contractors.
Okay, thank you. Ministry of Finance, is this a common practice that is adopted throughout with state enterprises and statutory bodies?
Member, thank you again. It is not a common practice, but because EFCL had some matters in court and their bank accounts were garnished, they could not accept payments or make payments from their bank account. Therefore, the ministry utilized MTS to facilitate that process to pay the EFCL contractors that had outstanding bills and so on.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand why MTS and why not the Ministry of Education, for example.
Well, I think MTS can answer that, but because of it is a loan, it have to be on a legal entity or a company, and therefore the relationship is between a bank and a company. Hence the reason why MTS was used. Ministries don't really have loans on their name, so MTS was utilized as part of that process as a legal entity.
Right, okay, so thanks for that explanation. So MTS, the members of the board, everyone on the board would have had to sign off on this loan, as in the sense that agree to have this loan pass through MTS to pay the contractors of EFCL. Is it a matter of you all had to reach an agreement with the Ministry of Finance, or just were told to do it and did it?
Hello. Who will answer that? Mrs. Lazarus or
Ms. Hilali?
Yes, member, the Ministry of Finance would have instructed MTS that this loan was going to be taken and that it was procured to FCB Bank. We were just instructed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will pause for now.
may I just follow up? Is it possible that the committee could be provided with a list of contractors who would have had their outstanding liabilities or payments owed to them by EFCL completed or at least satisfied? Is it possible that we can receive that? Well, in fact, let me just recast it, this question. How many contractors were involved? May I ask the corporate secretary?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, let me prefer that answer. So MTS was not involved in selecting the contractors from EFCL. A list was provided, and my understanding that list was to service $400 million loan. There was much more money outstanding.
Okay.
So we can provide you, Mr. Chairman, with the list of those contractors that paid to cover that $400 million. That list that was given to us.
Now, may I also clarify here, now that is with the FCB loan. You mentioned NCB Global Financial. Was NCB Global Financial in a similar kind of arrangement as we had with the FCB loan to pay off contractors? Can you clarify?
No, yes, Mr. Chairman, the first loan that we got in 2018-19, that was 400 million from FCB to pay off EFCL contractors. The remaining loans that we have on our books is to execute new works. So the second loan really was to start up the priority schools. So those were the loans that we started to do, schools that were not completed in the past. So that $400 million was to start that project. And that loan came from the Ministry of Finance. They are the brokers of that loan, and they are also our client for that particular project.
And could you advise Mr. Ratan Singh as it relates to the FCB 400 million loan for paying off outstanding debts to contractors formerly employed by the EFCL? Can you indicate to this committee how was this executed in terms of the arrangement? For example, could you advise whether a discount method would have been applied in this regard? For example, if I'm a contractor and I'm being owed, let's say, $25 million for works I executed on behalf of EFCL, in order to satisfy my $25 million contractual obligation, would that have been arranged via a discount? Meaning that instead of taking 25 million, I would have taken, let's say, 20 in order to satisfy my arrangement.
Yes, Chairman. We are not aware of what was used to calculate the amounts that were given to the contractors. We were just provided with the name of the contractors, the project, and the amount to be paid. We had nothing to do with the decision making regarding the contractors to be paid, nor the amounts to be paid.
All right. Okay, we'll come back to that on another occasion. Let me just move on to another matter. And this has to do with the statement we got earlier from MTS that they have satisfied their requirements in accordance with the State Enterprise Monitoring Manual to submit their accounts, that is financial audited accounts and statements, to the line ministry, Ministry of Finance Corporation Seoul, as well as the Securities and Exchange Commission. Can I ask the Ministry of Public Utilities, upon receiving those financial audited statements for the years 2018-19 up to 2021, with 2022 to come in very shortly, can you indicate to us, were those accounts, financial audited accounts, upon being received, how long did it take the Public Utilities Ministry to have those things submitted to Corporation Seoul? Or did you submit those accounts to Corporation Seoul, Ministry of Finance, that is?
Chairman, those documents would have been submitted simultaneously to the Ministry of Finance. So upon all receipt of those documents from MTS, we would normally do an analysis here at the ministry, and we will provide our principal, our ministry, with our minister with an analysis of those documents. But those documents are submitted simultaneously to the Ministry of Finance, and it is in fact the Ministry of Finance that then deals with the audited reports in terms of taking them to cabinet for review and consideration. I don't know if that ministry would want to add anything at your discretion, Chair.
Yeah, well, thank you so very much. May I ask the Ministry of Finance Investment Division, what is the status of those financial audited accounts that would have been submitted to you? That is the Ministry of Finance. Can you advise?
Thank you, Chair. Well, from 2018 to present, excluding 2022, those accounts were submitted to us. We analyzed those financial statements. We held annual general meetings, and subsequently, those accounts are submitted to Parliament. For 2021, we got those accounts a couple of months ago, and only recently we got a request to hold the AGM for the financial year in 2021, December 31st, 2021. So that AGM will take place within the next week or so. For 2022, those accounts are still being audited, and soon we will receive those from MTS. But to go back to the question is that once we receive the accounts, we do an analysis of the AGM, and subsequently it goes to Parliament.
Can you advise this committee when those accounts, financial audited accounts and statements for 2019, 2020, and 2021 were sent to the Parliament?
Chairman, thank you again. I don't have the dates in front of me, but I will be willing to put that in writing if that is not a problem with the committee.
Yes, we would certainly welcome those statements, because as far as we are aware, on our end, that is the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee, the last financial audited report we have received in the Parliament is dated 2018. So we have not received any audited financial accounts for 19, 20, 21, and as I said, 22, based on what we were advised, is now in transition. So I do not know where and when the Ministry of Finance would have routed these audited accounts. So I would look forward receiving in writing, almost post haste, from the Ministry of Finance when those accounts, the dates they were sent, because we are yet to have access to those accounts. So Ministry of Finance, Investment Division, we look forward to receiving your correspondence with some degree of urgency. Okay? Mr. Russian Parry, you'd like to raise an issue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to close off my end of question, I have two questions and a comment. Mr. Ratansingh, in terms of the EFCL debt, is there still a portion of it outstanding to pay out to those EFCL contractors that would have been transferred to your accounts?
Thank you, member. The part that was given to us to pay, all $400 million was paid, so as I am aware. Whether there are other persons being owed by EFCL, I am not aware of that information. But
that value is not on your books at this time?
No.
Okay.
Nothing from EFCL is on our books.
Okay. All right, and I have a question for the corporate the legal secretary there. I just wanted to find out if MTS has any pending legal matters, either as plaintiffs or defendants in the court system, for any matters in terms of employees, in terms of any other issues. Does MTS have matters before the courts right now? And if they do, give us an indication of probably in writing what some of those matters would have been like, and if MTS would have had to pay cost over the last couple of years, probably about 3 or 4 years, what would those values have been in terms of understanding MTS's legal systems in terms of how you are interacting in the courts based on any issues that would have popped up over the last couple of years?
Sure. Yes. Thank you, member, for the question. We will submit to the committee in writing the list of litigation matters. We do have litigation matters before the court. They are by and large employees who may have been injured on the job and would have then taken the company to court for damages. We can send the listing of litigation matters and the progress with those matters to you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Rattan Singh, just to close off, I have listened to several state enterprises come before this committee and talk about their plans and so on. And I want to commend you. I mean, you spoke to Member Lizama in terms of your broad scope. And I don't know if you have more latitude than many of those other state enterprises. But clearly, I like what I'm hearing in terms of where you want to take MTS in terms of being more competitive, being less reliant on the state, and going out there into the private sector where we ought to be looking at in terms of dropping the reliance on the state as well. So I want to commend you and your team, and I suspect you have a good team that is going to work with that.
Thank you, member.
I also want to highlight something you said as well in terms of your focus and the work that you do, especially in rural communities. I mean, I mentioned about Mayaro as well. But the fact that you are hiring a lot of women in terms of some of these activities, and I want to commend you for that as well, because in my respectful view, the more women that we put to work, especially the single mothers and so on, we empower women, and we in a society. I mean, you could have seen for the last 2 weeks, you've seen incidents in the public space where women were the victims of abuse and so on. I mean, one earlier as even yesterday. And I feel when we put women to work, especially in organizations like yours, that has a good system and structure, I think we empower them for one. And when we empower them, they become more empowered in the household in terms of disciplining children and so on. We have such a huge issue with youth and discipline. And I think the more women we put into the world of work, I think that is going to help curtail a bit of that indiscipline as well. And obviously, when you empower women in the relationship, in the home, I think the men and the gentlemen in the home tend to look at them a little different. So, Mr. Chairman, if this is not policy of MTS in terms of probably a proportionate amount of women that they must be mandated, I think it's a good recommendation that we can recommend. We are writing this report because I see MTS playing a crucial role in terms of the social fabric with our women as well. So that is something I want to commend you for, and it's something that I am trying to highlight even at the municipal corporation level in terms of its work program to see how many women that it can bring on board as well in terms of a structured percentage so we can accomplish and deal with those issues of youth indiscipline, the violence in the home and so on. So I want to commend you with that, and I look forward to MTS growing stronger. Because I mean, I'm talking about the work that I see that you do here in the Mayaro constituency in our schools, and I think your team must be commended for that. So that's it for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, member.
Yeah. I just want to indicate to Mr. Scotland, I was looking at the limitation of certain actions Act, Chapter 709, and under Section 3, subsection A1 or 1A and 2, as well, yeah, 1 and 2. I think there are, in fact, provisions for our consideration as a committee. So at the appropriate time, I'm sure when we are dealing with recommendations, we can look at that particular or those particular sections. I just wanted to ask MTS again. When it comes to the construction of schools and the maintenance of schools, the funding for the construction of same would come through the Ministry of Education, or would it be the Ministry of Finance? And in that regard, if it comes through the Ministry of Finance, would MTS be instructed by the Ministry of Finance to access a loan or to sign off the loan with X financial institution or Y financial institution? Is that how it works? Just for my own edification.
Yes. So good question, Mr. Chairman. So there are three methods of funding. The first method education uses will be the IDF. So contracts, we enter into a contract with the Ministry of Education to do school repairs, and they would utilize the IDF. So they would give us approval to proceed to do some construction roof repair in Mayaro Secondary. That funding, some of it will come from the IDF. So we will then submit an invoice to the Ministry of Education, and that will be submitted to the Ministry of Finance, and that will come through the IDF. The second method of funding for the school, it would be loans really. So the Ministry of Education have a loan for $200 million to deal with school repair. So some of those monies will be instructed through Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance. So what happens is that when the work is completed, we invoice the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education then would send it to the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance will then review it and then in writing instruct me to access the bank account to pay those for those contractors. The third mechanism is directly with the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance would have procured some loans just for the school, the high priority schools, the priority schools, and those are directly sent to the Ministry of Finance, not through Education. And Ministry of Finance would review it and then instruct me in writing to access the loan to pay the contractors. So that's the mechanism that is used, Mr. Chairman.
Now, in the case of FCB, we know about the 400 million loan, but you mentioned another financial house called NCB Global Finance. Can you advise this committee what is the total loan that you have entered into with this particular financial institution or body?
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, MTS would enter into these loan agreements, but MTS do not procure these facilities. It's done by the Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Finance would procure, and then we would enter into the arrangements. So there are three loans with NCB. The first is 200 million for school repair. Second is payment to EFCL contractors of 400, so that's 600, and so that's a bond actually. And the third loan is 269 million for the priority schools. So we are talking about 469 million in loans and a $400 million bond with NCB.
Oh, the 400 million bond was with FCB.
So the loan was at NCB, with FCB, and then it went into, it was refinanced by NCB with a bond.
Okay, and that is the same loan to address payment to
EFCL contractors, yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Are there any final questions my colleagues would like to raise?
Yes, Chair. I'd like to just ask one question, please, if that's all right.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. First of all, I want to place on record, it was fortuitous that I'm speaking after Mr. Parry, and I want to endorse his last sentiments, expressing congratulations to MTS on the way it's conducting its business and the way that it has transformed the organization and the trailblazing lead that it is setting for other state enterprises to follow. And so I really want to congratulate the CEO and the chairman and the board and all members of staff who are really taking MTS forward. And perhaps this would be a really good best practice. Once, of course, you're able to collect your outstanding payments naturally. I just have one question to ask, please. I know that coming out of your last visit with the PAEC, there was discussion about whistleblowing policy. And can I just ask if there has been any finality or any progress with the implementation of a whistleblowing policy? Thank you.
Thank you very much, member. We are pleased to report that we have a whistleblowing policy. It has been approved by the board of directors and it's been implemented.
Can I just ask when that has, since when that has been taken place, or that was implemented rather?
It was approved sometime last year, ending of last year with the board.
Wonderful. Thank you kindly.
Anyone else would like to raise a final question? Is it Mrs. Dunrai?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I have one final question to MTS. Mr. Rasan Singh, when you gave your introduction statements, you identified 5 challenges that the MTS faces. And the last one you mentioned was with respect to the private security bill, and you told us that you would elaborate on it further. Are you in a position to do so now?
Member, thank you so much for bringing that up again, because I really wanted to speak about it. I'll ask the corporate secretary to speak on it in a little while. Our position is that MTS should not be under the private security bill because it's going to be onerous on us, because most of the things that have been asked of the bill, we're already reporting to our line ministry or Ministry of Finance, having audited financial accounts, reporting to the Parliament. We are already doing a number of things, but the most important thing is that we are handling certain mission critical buildings that are important for us remaining independent and not under that bill. But I'd ask, we have done a document, sent it to MPU, and we sent it to the Ministry of National Security, stating our case. And we actually met with the Minister of National Security and the colleagues from the CPC to go forward as to whether we should go forward and what is our position on this matter. So if you permit me, member, I'd ask the corporate secretary to elaborate.
Sure. Corporate Secretary?
Yes, so as you would have mentioned, we have put our position forward to our line ministry, to the Minister of National Security, and we would have had a meeting in September last year regarding that and our concerns with the recent draft. In the initial draft of the legislation, MTS was not included in the legislation. In fact, we remain under the Supplemental Police Act, which is what our position has maintained. Since then, the draft has had some amendments and we have been included in the most recent draft. And we have expressed our concerns with that. Since our meeting with the Minister of National Security in September last year, we have consolidated our issues and we have put forward a case for why we think MTS should not be included, some of which you would have mentioned. And we go back to the genesis for the legislation, right? At the end of the day, this legislation is to regulate an unregulated industry, the unregulated private security companies, of which MTS does not belong. MTS is a regulated company. We are not private. We are state enterprise that is heavily regulated and monitored by different arms of the state, including the Parliament. And none of our competitors experience this kind of regulation or monitoring. It's a wild, wild west of security companies out there. But it is an industry that needs regulating, given the power that they have as almost private army. The number of security officers that are private security officers quite outnumber what the state security forces would number. And so it has been recognized worldwide that the industry needs to be regulated. And we are for that. We think the industry needs to be regulated, but we also agree that MTS should not be under that legislation because it, as the CEO would have said, it doesn't serve the purpose of the state for the work that MTS does with the state.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Mr. Chair, could I ask that they submit to us in writing that justification for their case? Because as I understand it, it is one of the challenges going forward that the MTS would face, and also the committee should take it into consideration.
Yes, of course. May I ask Mr. Ratan Singh or Mrs. Lazarat if you can make available your submission as to why MTS is of the view that the current private security bill ought not to have MTS included. And if you can share with us your submission on that matter and any additional information, as my colleague Amrita Deonarine has alluded to, we would really welcome your submission to this committee on your concerns for being incorporated or inserted into this private security industry bill. So I look forward to receiving your submission on this matter. Mr. Ratan Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We certainly will have that off to you in a jiffy.
Yeah, thank you so very much. Members, if there are no further questions or issues, I think that I'd like to bring down the curtains at this time. But in doing so, may I ask the officials from the Ministry of Finance Investment Division if you can submit as a matter of urgency, if it could be done today, we would welcome that submission of all your outstanding audited financial statements that you claim to have been submitted to our Parliament. If you can have those things submitted today or before the end of this week, that is your financial audited statements, balance sheets, profit and loss statements as audited for the period 2019, 2020, 2021. And we do look forward to the submission of your audited financial statements for 2022 shortly. Okay, so officials out of the Ministry of Finance Investment Divisions, please submit urgently again, because we are yet to receive any of those financial audited accounts. Please submit them urgently. If you can do it by this evening, we will welcome them by tomorrow. But latest, we would like you to submit all no later than Friday of this week. Now, in closing, therefore, I would like, on behalf of the Public Accounts Enterprises Committee, to thank all our public officials out of MTS, out of the Ministry of Finance Investments Division, as well as officials out of the Ministry of Public Utilities for being with us today. And we look forward to bringing back MTS shortly to address financial audited statements 2019, 2020, 2021, and soon 2022 financial audited accounts. So you are now excused, and we look forward to all of those officials returning shortly for another round of inquiry as it relates to your outstanding financial statements, audited financial statements. So thank you so very much, members of those three agencies, and you are now excused. Thank you so very much. Members members of our committee, we ask you to stay back because we have a matter that we want to address. So thank you very much.
Okay.